Good morning, everyone. Really glad that you joined us here. I love this series, stopping through and asking the question as we're gonna know and follow Jesus, what are the things that we should know on the way? We've been talking about the authority of the Bible, evangelism in the Word. Are you saved? Last week, Brent talked about the church. Today, we're gonna narrow in a little bit more on this idea of what Will just said on spiritual family. What does it look like to be a family? And when we talk about family in this church, we're unashamedly saying that one of the best applications of that is the connection groups. It's these smaller contexts that meet throughout the land. And so, here's the thing. When we start talking about this kind of community, we really start to come kind of head on or kind of right up against some cultural realities when it comes to talking about true community. I read a couple articles this last week. One of them is called The Antisocial Century by Derek Thompson. I want you to hear this. He says this, the author says, a short drive from my home in North Carolina is a small Mexican restaurant with several tables and 4 stools at a bar facing the kitchen. On a sweltering afternoon last summer, I walked in with my wife and daughter. The place was empty. But looking closer, I realized that business was booming. The bar was covered with to-go food, 9 large brown bags. As we ate our meal, I watched half a dozen people enter the restaurant without sitting down to eat. Each one pushed open the door, walked to the counter, picked up a bag from the bar, and then left. In the delicate choreography between kitchen and customer, not a word was exchanged. The space once reserved for that most garrulous social encounter, the bar hangout, had been reconfigured into a silent depot for customers to grab food and eat at home. Until the pandemic, the bar was bustling and popular with regulars. It's just a few seats, but it's a pretty happening place, Ray Mosher, the restaurant's general manager, told me. I can't tell you how sad I've been about it, she went on. I know it hinders communication between customers and staff to have to-go bags taking up the whole bar, but there's nowhere else for the food to go. And so she put up a sign, bar seating closed. We see this trend in our culture. We see it in all these different kind of snippets. We look into different aspects of life. We see this kind of distancing from community and into more of just an aloneness, an isolation. The author goes on looking not only at dining, but at film or the movies. He says, film was a necessary collective experiment, something enjoyed with friends in the company of strangers, but technology has turned film into a home delivery system. Today, the typical American adult buys about 3 movie tickets a year. I actually thought that was higher than what I was thinking. But watches almost 19 hours of television per week, an equivalent of roughly 8 movies. In entertainment, as in dining, modernity has transformed a ritual of togetherness into an experience of homebound reclusion and even solitude. Robert Putnam wrote a book called Bowling Alone. It's a really significant book of analysis of data of these kind of trends. And he says in the 1970s, the typical household entertained people, having people over, on average more than once a month. Since he wrote the book, his measurements would say that so the frequency of hosting friends in homes for parties and games and dinners and so on has declined over 75%. There's a movement, and I think we all feel it. If you guys have been through the Keystone Pathway in Step 2, I tell one of the stories from my own life of kind of where I saw this. We lived up in Ames in an old house, 1914, beautiful house, real wood, everything's ornate, the stairs. We had people come in and say, if we try to build this again, this would cost a fortune, right? Because it's just so wonderfully made. Well, one of the things that this house has is a front porch. Front porches. There's something so wonderful about a front porch of just sitting. I mean, everything in a movie that you think of, just rocking on your thing, drinking your lemonade, your little dog, come on up here, you just think, come on up to my thing. It's just this place. I even read a thing by Tim Keller was talking about the lemonade generation. He was just saying that the safest neighborhoods were those that had front porches, those that were on their front porches. We don't have that anymore, do we? It's not in our kind of our culture. What do we build instead? Back decks. And we got some sweet decks. I mean, these are amazing. There's awesome designs, and it's not wrong. It's a great thing, obviously, with your family. But do you see kind of the movement of I'm gonna kind of step out here, and I kind of don't want those people, I just want our people. And I think we experience this. We all feel this in various ways throughout all of our lives. A friend of mine, a guy I studied under for about a year, Dr. Mark Mayfield, came in and did a thing with our staff. He said this: we don't have a mental health problem, we have a loneliness problem. He's not saying that there's not a million reasons why we have mental health, but he's just saying that much of our mental health problem actually stems from a loneliness problem. And I think all of us that would say, yep, I've had mental health issues, go yeah, that kind of makes sense. There's a loneliness, there's a longing, and that's hard. And so here's the question today. Does God have an answer for this? Does he speak to us? Does the Bible tell us that, is there something we can do about this? And the answer is absolutely yes. And so today we're gonna be turning to Acts chapter 2. If you're in your scriptures, go to Acts chapter 2. And we're gonna see this first generation church, these families, these people huddling together. And we're gonna ask the question, what does it look like and what should we be taking from that? So there's an important context here that we need to kind of review a little bit. These are the same people who have been listening and watching all of Jesus' teachings. They just saw him crucified, mind blown, how can this guy be crucified? And then they saw him alive. And when they saw him alive, he's giving Matthew 28, he's saying, go make disciples. Tell everybody about the fact that I'm alive. And then in Acts 1, right before this text, he's saying, go into all the earth, make disciples, go do it. It's gonna be awesome. And then he went up to heaven. These are the same people that are now gathering around going, now what? And so Peter steps up and he's got his first sermon. He's got this first proclamation, and we're gonna pick it up right at the end of his proclamation. This is in verse 41, Acts 2:41. He says, so those who accepted this is Peter's message, were baptized, and that day about 3,000 people were added to them. Pause there. That's craziness, okay? This is a big church. Okay, this is crazy. There's 1,000 seats in here. One day, 3 times as many people are in here. That's awesome. That kind of movement of God and the power of God to be able to see so many people responding. Guys, it's what we feel like is happening here and in all the SALT network of just God's movement of his people responding. And so what do they do? What do we do? If we have 3,000 people standing around going, I'm in. You're like, okay, all right, well, we're going to create community. We're gonna create smaller contexts. We're gonna have this kind of a context in the temple, in the church, and then we're gonna have smaller contexts. And I want you to see this. Look at this. Verse 42. They devoted themselves. This is the people. They're devoted to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And then listen to this paragraph. This is just, I love this. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and signs were being performed through the apostles. Now all the believers were together, and they held all things in common, and they sold their possessions and property and distributed the proceeds to all and any had need. And every day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple. And look at this, and broke bread from house to house. They're creating smaller contexts. They broke bread house to house, and they ate their food with joyful and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. I love that. There's a peacefulness, there's a goodness there. There's something that stands even in contrast to our current culture of just a community. So let's pull out a couple of things here. There are so many things we could talk about, especially in the book of Acts, of just the establishment of these kinds of people. But I'm just gonna draw out just a couple of things here. I'm gonna draw out 2 characteristics and 7 activities. Okay, we're gonna run pretty quickly through this. This is not gonna be able to dig in super deep, but I do want you to see this. These are gonna be on the screen just to be able to help us to kind of keep up with this layout. Here's the first one. This first century church is devoted. It's devoted. They are devoted. You see that in 2:42, they devoted themselves to all these things. And then in verse 46, every day they devoted themselves to meeting together. They are absolutely committed to one another. They're absolutely committed to this. It's not a passing fad. This is something that they're said, I need you. I have to be here. You need me. We're all in this together. I'm devoted. And they're knowing this is gonna be needed as persecution happens. They're gonna need to be together. And so here's the question. Why were they so devoted to this? What was it about? And here's the answer. There's lots of answers. But here's one of them. Jesus taught this. Jesus taught this about how we should interact with one another on a daily, hour, minute by minute kind of basis. And this is what Pastor Brent talked about last week in the church. And we talk about the idea of the one another's. You guys have heard about the one another's. Well, I'm gonna throw up a little graphic here. This is kind of a word count of all the different instructions about the one another's. Here's just a couple stats. 100 times in the New Testament, 1/3 of those are about love. 1/3 are love one another. You guys, you have to do this. Love one another. 1/3 of them talk about being unified as a church. 15% of them stress the attitude of humility and deference towards others. And 11 others, here are some examples. Bear one another's burdens, speak truth to one another, encourage, build each other up, spur one another on to love and good deeds. They were devoted because this was Jesus' teaching to the church. And they knew that if we're gonna live out these one another's, we're gonna have to be together, we're gonna have to do this. So here's the thing, just to reiterate, last week, Pastor Brent said last week, you cannot know and follow Jesus. You ought not say that I follow God and then say, I got this, I'm gonna do this alone, right? It wouldn't make any sense to any of these instructions. You are not able to live this out. And it's not something that you can then benefit from. Do you see that? We're not meant, none of us are designed to live this life by ourselves as we follow Jesus. So the first thing is that they're devoted. Here's the second thing, they're selfless. You guys see that? They're selfless. They're like, okay, here's what it says in 44. Now all the believers were together and they held all things in common. They sold their possessions and property and distributed the proceeds to all that had need. Like, dude, you need that? Dude, you can totally have it. One of the values that we have is we give because it all belongs to God, right? And so why wouldn't I be able to share? And you need something, I got this. Here, you borrow my lawnmower. It's like you can car, whatever you need. You need me some money? Great, I'm gonna give this to you. Like, there's something so wonderful about this. Now, pause just a second. Over and over again, people will say, well, that's communism. It's not communism, here's why. This is not forced sharing. This is not forced giving. This is glad sharing. This is volunteer sharing. This is glad giving. This is glad serving. They have land. They have things that they own. They have things. That's not the point here. This is actually beautiful community. And some of you that are in connection groups, some of you that are a part of them already would say, I've seen that happen and it's beautiful. It is amazing, and I want to be a part of it, and now I want to be giving and sharing of my own. That is the nature of that. They're devoted and selfless, but they're doing 7 different things. They're probably doing way more than this. But in the text, they're doing 7 different things. Look at this. Here's the first one. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. Have you ever just paused for a second and thought, wait, what's the apostles' teaching? The apostles are those that were with Jesus. What do you think the teaching is? Very simply, everything he taught, He just died on the cross, paid for our sin, and resurrected just not weeks or months ago. They're saying, come follow. We're devoted to that. We want to know that with everything we possibly can. That's what we do. Jesus is the center. We're devoted to everything that he is saying. That's where we stand in awe of God's word. We say it all the time here at Keystone. Here's the second thing, fellowship. Fellowship, they're devoted to fellowship. Now fellowship is this idea that the Greek word is koinonia. I'm sure you've heard that if you've been around for very long. It means partnership or sharing, right? When we talk about membership at this church, we talk about co-laboring together, like locking arms. We're in this together. We have a mission. We have a job to do. We need to do the one another's. We need to care for one another. That's why we're here. We're fellowshipping together. Now, sometimes we have looked at fellowship and we think, well, we're just hanging out. We're watching movies, right? Nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. But there's something so much more about fellowship than just hanging out and watching movies. We have a shared life. We have a shared love. We have a shared experience, and Christ is at the center. You see that? That is super, 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 super important to understand. Here's the third thing, breaking of bread. Breaking of bread for sure would have been communion. They for sure would have said, we're gonna get together and we're going to remember what Jesus has done for us. We're gonna break bread and we're gonna take the wine and we're gonna celebrate and remember all that he has done. But it also includes that they're having meals together. If there's a hangout section in this place, in this part of the text, it's probably right here. The breaking of bread, they hung out all the time like this is great. We're all together in this. We have a mission together. Look what Jesus has done. This is awesome. The last one is prayer, at least in this list, prayer. They devoted themselves to the privilege that Jesus had just purchased for them. They have the freedom to now approach the throne of grace with confidence because of what Jesus had done, and they were now praying. And so here's one thing that I think is worth noting. In our connection groups, we want to talk as much as we possibly can about the idea of talking with God, being open with God, but not just doing it on my own, right? We have a tendency to do this on our own. We think our prayer, our faith is my faith. That is not what we see in the scriptures at all. This is not my faith, this is not your faith. This is our faith, and we do this together. And as a matter of fact, what they do is they learn to pray out loud. They learn to do it together. They learn to say, you pray, I pray, let's all pray, because we get the privilege of talking. We need to learn how to do that in these smaller contexts, for sure. But I want you to notice also, there's things that are not listed inherently here, but you see this. You see sharing, you see giving, you see serving, and we could go on and on in this entire list. This is a community that's marked by all of these things. And this is the first century. This is right in the beginning. This is a pattern for us. And it's not just a pattern for back then, it's a pattern for us now. And we think this is glorious. This is his design. This is his goodness. This is the way it should be. This is what it is, the end. This is happily ever after, and nobody has any needs and no one's lonely, right? That's the way it is today, right? Bummer. So we're gonna have to ask the question, why? Why is that? Why, if this is the model that we've been given, then how come it's sometimes not translating? I know plenty of you in groups are like, no, it is translating. It's exactly translating. And for that, we rejoice. And so here's the thing. What if this kind of community actually did exist? I'm gonna tell you that it does. And it does in this church, in a place called Connection Groups. And so you might be thinking, nah, I've heard people say that before in churches. That's not true. I don't believe you. Well, let me see if I can cast a big enough vision for you to be able to maybe reconsider that what this is. Here's the thing, in our connection groups, we have three main values. First one is spiritual family. We wanna be a family together. The second one is life application. We wanna hear the word of God, the teaching of the apostles, and apply it. We wanna learn how to live this out, not just be hearers. And then we also wanna live on mission. We wanna say, how do we take this to people that we are? It's about that simple. We just got done with surveys. So every year we evaluate what we're doing in our small groups because we wanna know, we have a model, How are we doing in this? Guys, I'm so deeply encouraged. I'm gonna share some of these things with you. This is just about a week and some ago that these all closed up. So we had strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. Here's one of the questions. I feel like I belong to this group as they are my family. For those that said strongly agree or agree, 97%. Okay, we literally have 54 groups. There's 775 people in our church that are in connection groups around the entire metro area. 53% of them answered the question. We had 441, they're just statistics, okay? Just so it's like a couple people just said, yeah, that's right. 97% said, this is my family. Here's another one. I can be open and honest about my life, the good and the bad, with this group. 99% said yes. 99 of 411 people that did the survey. I love this. I feel confident that if something challenging happened in my life, someone would be there to walk through it with me. 99% of the people said yes. I'm telling you guys, it's happening in this church. And some of the words that some people said, I love this group. They have become more of my family than any other group I've been a part of. They both support and challenge me every week, and I'm very thankful for each one of them. Another person said, my husband and I treasure the friendship that we have made over the years with our connection group members. Each year we feel that our group gets closer and our relationship with Christ deepens more as a result of our conversations and time together. I could go on and on. I love this. And if you've been a part of one, you know I love that too, because that's what the first century church was doing, and it's a deep breath and it becomes the highlight of your week. You guys nod if you're in one and you think, yeah, that's totally right. But you very well may say, I get it, but I still have hesitations. That's really cool. But can I maybe attempt to enter in with you a little bit here? Here's some possible reasons that you might actually be saying, I'm not ready. Okay, here's the first one. You might say, people are weird and community is messy. In which case I would say, correct. You are correct. Two answers. God still calls us to the one another's in the middle of messiness, in the middle of weird people. And by the way, here's the second thing. You're weird and you're messy. Okay, you're gonna fit right in. I'm weird, I'm messy, we're all a part of this. And there's something so endearing about stepping into an environment where you go, okay, that was weird, but you know what? They're struggling with something very similar to what I'm struggling with, and all of a sudden I feel like maybe this is my people. Maybe there's something about, no, we're gonna keep Jesus at the center. We're all gonna be working to be different than with that struggle, but we're gonna keep him at the center. And there's something, I'm being transformed, I'm seeing that person transformed, because it is a scary thing to jump into something like that. I know that. But what we say to our leaders, be the first to be weird and messy. Okay, don't be weird. But it's okay to share the fact that you don't have it all together. And when people walk into these contexts, they go, well, shoot, this is probably a good place for me to be because we're all trying to follow Jesus together and we find that it's hard. My wife and I routinely talk about, we'll be married 30 years next February. And we have kids, they're all out of the house, we have 4 girls, and we love marriage. We love parenting. We also think marriage is hard and parenting is hard. And learning to, when I do something that's hurtful to my wife, how do we learn to overcome that? How do we let Jesus be the center? And there's pain that happens in that. There's challenges that happens in that. So we'll share that with our group. And you know, the assumption is that people go, oh, that's what your guys are like? Oh, see, no, it's not what happens. People go, you're right, because you know what, we actually think those things are hard too. That's where community begins to happen, when we all realize we're all in this together. Here's another one. I had a bad experience in the past. I've spoken to plenty of you that would say that. And for that, I just want to say I'm sorry. There's probably a myriad of reasons why you had a bad thing happen in the past. I'd love to help you process that. Because it's somewhere along the way, for either was someone's fault, or someone handled something poorly, or maybe you responded poorly, whatever it is, let's look at the biblical community, and can I cast a vision to be able to say, let's make it different. Let's give you a different experience. Would you try again in being a part of it? Here's another one. It's just easier to stay home and watch online. Plenty of people are watching online right now. And the answer is correct. It is easier. It is. But hold with me online just for a second. Here's the concern, is that we step right into what we talked about right in the beginning, that we're doing the thing, we're listening to church, but aren't we distancing ourselves from the community? Okay? Because here's the thing. We're meant to be together. We went on vacation. My wife's over here, that's why I'm pointing over here. We went on vacation last week. My son-in-law, David, graduated from Liberty University. David, good job, buddy. It's awesome. And we got to go to the graduation ceremony. It was incredible. It was awesome. And then so we thought, we're out in Virginia, we might as well go on vacation out on the beach. And so we got an Airbnb right there just north of Virginia Beach. It was awesome. And so the water's about from here to there. It's like, oh. But I gave our family some things to read. And so here was one of the articles. An age of extinction is coming. Here's how to survive. Yeah, and you might think, wow, that's a great vacation time. It's exactly what my kids said. All right. Here's what it said. It starts with substitution. The digital age takes embodied things and offers virtual substitutes, moving entire realms of human interaction and engagement from the physical marketplace to the computer screen. For romance, dating apps supplant bars and workplaces and churches. For friendship, texting and DMing replaces Hangout. For entertainment, the small screen replaces movie-going and live performances. And I would add, watching online can take the place of true life-giving kinds of community. See, here's the thing. Biblical community is categorically more than passive participation in knowledge acquisition. Let me say it again. Biblical community is categorically more than passive participation in knowledge acquisition. We have incredible opportunities to be able to learn online from so many teachers. It's we're gonna get to heaven and we're gonna go, man, you had all, it's a great thing. It is, it's a great thing. There might be reasons, and there are reasons that are legitimate for watching online. That is not what I'm saying. And it could be that this family sickness or the inability to come in, overseas trip, a business trip, vacation, whatever it is. There's plenty of reasons for that. That's not what I'm talking about. I am actually bringing up, though, I watch I'm at Keystone and I just watch it every time online. And there's nothing wrong. I just want to cast a bigger vision to be able to say, what would it look like to be involved at this kind of life-giving way where you're not just checking a box, but you're actually getting your soul fed because you're able to serve and people are serving you. You're loving people and people are loving you, like the one another's all together. That's the vision we're trying to cast. So don't feel shame on there. There are reasons for it, but maybe feel the challenge of what that looks like. Here's another maybe objection. I already have community with my softball team or my CrossFit gym or my work or pickleball. Well, not pickleball, that does count. Or whatever. Like, There are things that you're a part of that have a community aspect to them. And I would say, from the challenge of all the articles that I'm reading, we need more of that, right? We need to be engaged in more kind of civic, neighborhood type, brothers and sisters kinds of things. That's not the problem. But let's stop for a minute and remember, true biblical community has Christ at the center, okay? That's absolutely critical to understand this. So that when Jesus says, I have come that you might have life and have it to the fullest, we around the circle go, yeah, wow, what does that mean? How do we live that out? Oh, that's how you do it? Oh, that's really interesting. I never even thought about that. Or when Jesus says, I have come unto me, all who are weary and heavy laden, I will give you rest. And we're all like, man, I don't feel like I'm resting at all. Like, how do we do that? That's the center of Jesus. When he says, can any of you add one moment to your lifespan by worrying? You think, I worry all the time. Can we work on this together? Yes, we can, because that's what biblical community is when Christ is at the center, wrestling with things. Guys, here's a touchy one. I'm too busy. I know, we all feel it. And there are plenty of reasons that perhaps this is a season that maybe you're not connected for this, but maybe you would hear maybe the words of the Lord here. This is Hebrews chapter 10, 23 through 25, and the author is gonna kind of bring in a little bit of pressure here. He says, let us hold on to the confession of our faith without wavering. Feel like there's a tendency to waver in my own soul. Since he who promised is faithful, and let us consider one another. Let's motivate one another in order to provoke love and good works. Here it is. Not neglecting to gather together as some are in the habit of doing. There's a habit there that tends to kind of just slip into life, and then it's kind of hard to not get out of that habit of coming back into that kind of biblical community. He goes on, he says, but encouraging each other all the more as you see the day approaching. There's a day approaching. Christ is coming, book of Revelation, it's all coming. It's coming quick, and we have to be strong, and we're gonna have to help each other. Stay strong, stay focused. Christ has you. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. I know. That's why we're here. We're gonna help you. The idea of drifting, I'm gonna talk more about that this year, of drifting. How do we go against the drift? We come back to biblical community. That's how we do it. And you might come all the way down to this and go, okay. But connection group sounds scary. It seems scary. It is in the sense that you're gonna have to get in your car and you're gonna have to drive to someone's house and you're gonna have to go, that's scary. Guys, I'm not minimizing that at all. That's weird, especially for our current culture, that you would actually go to someone's house. But it's going to have to take, that if you really walked in and there was truly a family that was happening, and they're truly trying to figure out how do you follow Jesus in the Word, and then we're learning how do we then live on mission for Him, I'm telling you, you will not regret it. There is a picture that has been circulating on our support team. This is the volunteer team that I work with, supporting all the different 54 connection groups. There's a picture from Brian and Kayla Steffens. They sent me this picture. That's how I felt. You did it just right. Spiritual family. This is in their home on a routine basis. Kayla sent this to me. This is what spiritual family looks like. I thought, exactly right. Because you guys remember the Cheers song? Making a way in a world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries, that sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you just want to go where everybody knows your name. And you know what? They're always glad you came. And listen to this. And you want to be where you can see that the troubles are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name. Spiritual family. You need it. I need it. There's an author, hero of mine, Andrew Peterson. He wrote the song, Is He Worthy? If you've heard that. He's written a bunch of books too. He's one called the Wing Feather series. It's a series for kids. If you've not read it, read it. It's amazing. He's also written a bunch of other books, a book on creativity, and then a book called The God of the Garden, speaking on a similar kind of theme that we're talking about today. He says this, there are essentially three kinds of places in America: the city, the country, and that weird in-between thing we call suburbs. The suburbs. That slice of America where we name subdivisions after the trees we've cut down to build them. Ooh. Where we've zoned out any hope of a bookstore or a restaurant within walking distance, where we slave over lawns that we seldom use. Andrew. Where our front porches are too shallow for a porch swing. It's a little theme here. Where we walk the dog but can't walk to lunch, where we can't really get to know the neighbors because nobody's planning to stick around for more than a few years, and where the dominant feature of every house is the two-car garage, and where getting to know people is tougher than it seems to be because, listen to this, there's no village pub, no local bakery, no farmer's market. In other words, no casual gathering point. Let's change that. Let's change that. Homes all throughout Ankeny, Slater, Des Moines, Altoona. People are like, something's going on over there. Like all these cars, like we don't have any place to park now because all these people are on our street. What if communities were popping up all over the place and people were wondering what's going on with that? And people walk in and go, can I know what are you guys doing there? Well, we actually are devoted to the teaching of God. And we fellowship together and we ask the question, what is Jesus trying to teach us? We break bread, we hang out and party, but we actually are in prayer as well. We serve and give and share. That's what it looks like. If you'd say, you know what, I'm in. Here's my challenge. Find someone that you know that's in one and say, hey, can I go with you? That's the best. That's the best, because then you don't have to do this thing by yourself. Find someone that's in a group, go with them. If you say, I don't know anybody that's in one, great. Will just said Keystone Pathway in June. We're gonna tell you all about it and cast that vision for you as to really what that looks like. And lastly, if you say, you know what, I don't, come talk to me. I obviously like talking about this stuff. But may God give us a clear vision for what it looks like to be a part of spiritual family in this church. Let's pray together. Jesus, you've shown us what community looks like. You taught us how to love one another, how to serve one another, encourage one another, bear each other's burdens, spur one another on towards love and good deeds. You taught us all of that. And so now we want to do that for each other. Lord, forgive us for our tendency towards isolation, our tendency to maybe just say, you know what, not today. Lord, I pray that your Spirit would ignite within us a resolve to really embrace what those scriptures would say needs to happen in our souls and in our body and in our life, and not just for our own benefit, so that we can be, in our gifting, serve others and encourage others. I pray that the mark of this church, Lord, would be a radical community, family emphasis in all that we do. Thank you for all that you are doing. We pray all this in Christ's name. And everyone together said, amen.